Welcome back to Meshmen's introduction to the Mari node graph. We're gonna be working with nodes in this chapter here. So let's take a look here, and here's actually some nodes. Let's create nodes now. So there's a few options to do this. So we can hit the tab, and here you can type whatever you want, and it has fuzzy logic. So it tries to, if I type something SP, and we see here what's going on. Spotify, for example, it's not the streaming app. This is a node, and it looks like this. It's from extension pack. So that's one way. So the tab is to find whatever you think you're looking for. You also have this drop down where you can essentially scroll down here with the wheel. With the tab here, you can also dock stuff here. You see this pin icon here, and you get the list here. Let's say that we want to have a blend overlay is one of them I want to dock. Do that. Tab. And we see here, blend overlay is coming up here as one of the docked one there. Another way to add nodes is to use the right-click menu. So you can hit right-click and go to nodes. And here you have categories for your nodes. So if you, for example, is looking for a filter operation, go to filters, and there you can find the different filters. Procedurals, for example, if you're using extension pack, they are under the extension pack folders. Okay, so now here with my image manager, I can now create nodes, dragging them from my image manager into the node graph like this. And you get a pop out here if you have an extension pack. It's asking you, what do you want to do here with this one? Yeah, I'm just gonna say here an axis projection. Now I get an image nodes already set up with this axis projection here. So that's essentially a tree-planar projection. Okay, so with this node here now select, so I'm gonna select these two. I'm just gonna now type merge like so. And I'm gonna connect my Spotify to the base. So that's the lower. If you think about a layer, this will be the lower, and the over will be on top. And that's essentially what we got. If I now drag my mouse slider up and down, you see more or less. So let's take a look here if we want to disable a node. So let's select this merge node and hit the D button to disable it. So D for disable. And you see here, now my merge node is essentially grayed out. And you can see here the line connecting this axis projection into the over is essentially also crossed out. So we're essentially just looking now, bypassing this node. So the only thing we see is the base. So the base has precedence over the over. So if you disable a node, the base will always win over the over. And selecting nodes, if I select this node here, you can see in Mari 7 here, it gets highlighted. So you can see here which one you have selected a bit more easy, like so. If you want to select multiple nodes, you can do that by just clicking and dragging a box, and now you can select all of them like this. You can also control A, and now you're essentially selecting all of the nodes in your graph. So be careful if you, for example, now go in here and hit delete, you're essentially gonna delete everything in your graph. So Control Z to undo. So these are procedural nodes. Essentially, they are mathematical nodes. So if I go in here and take a look, I zoom in, essentially, now we have the underlying image resolution. But in this state, a procedural node is essentially a node that doesn't really have any pixels in it. So especially these noises here. If I go in here and tweak my noises here, you can see here there is no pixels. The more I zoom in, essentially the more I see here. And that is because this is a mathematical node or a noise. If you want to look at how this one will be when you export it, you need to convert this into paint. So paint up next here. So you can hit the P button to create a paint node. And this is something you can paint on. So you hit that P button and you get this pop out asking you the size here. This is the patch size you will use for this paint node. And the patch size in Mari, if we recap from the earlier lessons, if I go in here to my UV view, you can see here essentially my UVs for this asset. So one patch here, this will be one patch. So when you hit the P button and select a paint node, this size here will be correspond to the resolution here you will be painting in. In my case here, 2K 16-bit. You can also choose here the color that you want to have as a background. In my case here, for example, if I take the gray here, hit this scalar data here and hit OK. And now we'll have a gray paint node. And looking at this by hitting the 1 button onto this paint node, I'm just going to go back to my orthographic view and start to paint here. We can see here by now, zoom in here really close and make a small size here. Now we can start to see the individual pixels. So that's essentially, now we are down to pixel resolution. So if you want to have more resolution than this, if I now hit the bake and make another paint node here and now say 4K, the same here. I'm gonna look at this one and see here now it holds up a bit better. It's still pixelated, so if you wanna be this close, I mean we're very close there, you might wanna either do the UV layout different or change the patch size. And also when looking at a node like this, so you can see here, you can zoom in, but you can't see any pixels. If you wanna really be sure how a noise or a procedural node will be looking when you export it, you can insert a bake point. So bake point is essentially a way to bake down data in your stream and simplify something, but you can also use it to visualize stuff like this. If I now say here my patch size for this bake point is 4K, I'm gonna bake it down, and then we're gonna take a look here what happens when I have baked this one when it comes to the pixel resolution here. Now we can start to see here the pixels. So if I now swap between the bake point and the Spotify here, so I'm gonna hit 1 on the Spotify and 2 on the bake point. Another one, if you have done a bunch of operations, I'm just gonna now just hook up a few of these ones here, like so, and you essentially want to lay out these nodes. I'm just gonna jump into full screen. You can select one of these nodes here and hit the L button. That's gonna lay it out in one line like this. You also have these plus signs here on nodes, and that's essentially a way to minimize and collapse nodes if you don't want to see input, for example, there.